Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. So what's new? Monday today, and we are continuing work in the shop getting it set up. We're almost there. There's just a few more things that need to be done. But if you watched the last video, you know that there's enough put together in the shop now that we can start making knives. We can jump back into fulfilling orders and getting knives out to people who have them on order and making ready-made blades for sale, which I'm excited about, both of those. But as I mentioned in a video previous, the first knife I want to complete in this new shop is a Bowie knife here in Texas. That is going to be its very own video, and I'm going to be starting work on that today, but you're going to have to wait for that video because it's going to be a full build video. In the meantime, getting some things put up. I got to put up my Fire Creek Forge sign here, and I've got a wire in the kiln. What else? The dust collector is still not here, so to be working on the grinder, I'm going to use some fans to blow stuff, and of course using a respirator shouldn't be too bad. Now at some point in time I want to build a workbench out of, heavier angle iron that's like 8 feet long, 2.5 or 3 feet deep, to put in this area here, which will make a great assembly area and stuff like that. But in the meantime, I'm going to take one of these folding tables and put it right there. Alright, that'll be nice for now. I need to figure out how much conduit. I'm going to run some flexible conduit for the heat treat and toaster oven, little backup low temper device. How much I need for that, so let me measure that real quick. The way this is currently wired, if I were to just plug the kiln into the existing outlet right here, it would work, but only probably until I started using a grinder, angle grinder or something like that on the same circuit. So to avoid that issue, the breaker tripping and problems like that, I'm just going to go ahead and wire a dedicated breaker with an outlet, 120 volt outlet, to the heat treat table, and we can run both the kiln and the toaster off of it. So I need to run it to right here in the middle so that both cords will reach, and that will just be a lot simpler. Okay, so like I said, the permanent workbench that I want to build back here eventually would be very nice and sturdy and allow me to either use something like this or just an open shelf to put all my solutions and oils and solvents in. I thought I could use this little folding table as a stopgap until then, but man, I don't think so. That's just super flimsy. It's just not gonna, once I start adding weight to that, that's not gonna be safe, so that's not gonna work. Hey, it's just gonna have to sit here for now. It'll be usable and better than that could be a problem. Alright, well, I got a little safety measure on here, wired it back here so that whenever some kids come in here and pull on it, because that's going to happen, it's not just going to fall off there and just spill everything out, so that'll be safe for now. While it may be true that not having certain types of equipment can limit your overall ability to do certain things, it is not true that you can't get started with basic stuff. So what I'm saying is, if you want to start making knives or if you want to start forging stuff, then it's really incumbent on you to make use of whatever you have available to you at that time. Some people have the funds or the money to go ahead and buy a new forge or buy an anvil or things like that. And then a lot of people don't. And you look around my shop and you can see that, you know, I've built my forge. The forge I started with I did not build. However, the forges that I use currently I built. And you know, the press, I built that. Multiple pieces of equipment that I do have were actually gifted to me and were actually provided in that way, which is a huge blessing. But the theme is that I did not start with all of this equipment. I didn't start out that way. When I first started making knives over 20 years ago, I started with a file, and actually that's it. That's literally in a hacksaw. That's all I had. And I roughed out my first knife with those tools. And then my granddad helped me, you know, complete it with the tools that he had. And so that's where I started. And then after that, I got a little bench grinder, you know, the wheel, little Craftsman bench grinder. And that took me a little further. Eventually, I purchased a 2x48 belt grinder, which was okay, not that great, but it took me a little further, and I actually did build a sword on it, actually, believe it or not. That turned out not too bad for that stage of my knife making career, as it were. And so I guess my encouragement to anybody who's interested in the craft and interested in getting into building knives or forging things is to start doing it with what you have now. And if you have nothing, then you can either spend a few dollars to get some basic equipment, or spend a few dollars to scrounge some things and get some stuff together. I mean, honestly, all you need to start forging is a heat source that is capable of heating your material up to the necessary temperature, something to hit it with, and something to rest it on as you hit it. And of course, something to hold on to it, depending on the size or length of material you're working with, could be very useful as well. But let's say you're starting with a 2 or 3 foot rod of steel, you don't need any tongs or anything like that to hold on to it, because you just hold on to one end and work on the other. And so real quickly you can see that getting into forging, getting into blacksmithing, knife making can be done very inexpensively. So that's my encouragement. So what do you need in your shop? Not much at all. And you know, I have some nice equipment now that I really appreciate having and appreciate working with, but I did not start out with that. And most of what I have now, I didn't have for the majority of the time that I made knives. Some of it I built, multiple pieces of equipment. The first 2x72 grinder that I had, I built. I worked at a machine shop at that time that, you know, I could use the vertical mill, the lathe, the MIG welders, which I used all of those. And I built my own 2x72 grinder, and I started using that, or I used that when I started selling knives. That was the grinder that I had. That's just an example. So if you really want to get into this stuff, there are ways to do it, you know, my story is not starting out with a bunch of money and outfitting a shop. It has not been that way. Now, if this is your hobby and you have that ability, that's awesome. And a lot of times I wish that had been the way I'd done it, but it's not. And it's perfectly good to do it this way as well. So that's my encouragement. Okay guys, I went and got some flexi conduit with the wire inside, of course, some fittings, a breaker. We can get this kiln wired up now. All right, we're in business. All right, guys, thanks for watching. As always, I'm going to get to work on this buoy project and get that going, so stay tuned for that. Maybe I'll do it in a couple parts. I don't know, but my plan is to finish at least most of it, and then we'll see. But anyway, it'll be great, so stay tuned for that. See you on the next video.